The Jerusalem Bible, Leviticus 25 through 26:2. Yahweh spoke to Moses on Mount Sinai. He said, "To the sons of Israel, and say to them, when you enter the land that I am giving you, the land is to keep a Sabbath rest for Yahweh. For 6 years you shall sow your field. For 6 years you shall prune your vine and gather its produce. But in the 7th year the land is to have its rest, a Sabbath for Yahweh. You must not sow your field, or prune your vine, or harvest your ungathered corn, or gather grapes from your untrimmed vine. It is to be a year rest for the land. The Sabbath of the land will itself feed you, and your servants, men and women, your hired laborer, your guests, and all who live with you. For your cattle too, and the animals on your land, its produce will serve as food. You are to count 7 weeks of years, 7 times 7 years. That is to say, a period of 7 weeks of years, 49 years. And on the 10th day of the 7th month you shall sound the trumpet. On the day of atonement you shall sound the trumpet throughout the land. You will declare this 50th year sacred, and proclaim the liberation of all the inhabitants of the land. This is to be a jubilee for you. Each of you will return to his ancestral home, each to his own clan. This 50th year is to be a jubilee year for you. You will not sow, you will not harvest the ungathered corn, you will not gather from the untrimmed vine. The jubilee is to be a holy thing to you. You will eat what comes from the fields. In this year of jubilee, each of you is to return to his ancestral home. If you buy or sell with your neighbor, let no one wrong his brother. If you buy from your neighbor, this must take into account the number of years since the Jubilee. According to the number of productive years, he will fix the price. The greater the number of years, the higher shall be the price demanded. The less the number of years, the greater the reduction. For what he is selling you is a certain number of harvests. Let none of you wrong his neighbor, but fear your God. I am Yahweh your God. You must put my laws and customs into practice. You must keep them, practice them, and so you shall be secure in your possession of the land. The land will give its fruit. You will eat your fill and live in security. In case you should ask, what shall we eat in this 7th year if we do not sow or harvest the produce? I have ordered my blessing to be on you every 6th year, which will therefore provide for you for 3 years. You will have the old produce to eat while you are sowing in the 8th year, and even as late as the 9th year. You will eat the old produce while waiting for the harvest of that year. Land must not be sold in perpetuity, for the land belongs to me, and to me you are only strangers and guests. You will allow a right of redemption on all your landed property. If your brother falls on evil days and has to sell his patrimony, his nearest relative shall come to him and exercise his right of redemption on what his brother has sold. The man who has no one to exercise this right can regain his property in this way. When he has found the means to effect the redemption, he is to calculate the number of years that the alienation would have lasted, repay to the purchaser the sum due for that time still to run, and so return to his property. If he cannot find the sum for paying the compensation, the property sold shall remain in the possession of the purchaser until the Jubilee year. In the Jubilee year, the latter must relinquish it and return it to his owner. If anyone sells a dwelling house that is in a walled town, he shall have the right of redemption until the expiry of the year following the sale. His right of redemption is limited to the year, and if the redemption has not been effected by the end of the year, this house in the town shall be the property of the purchaser and his descendants in perpetuity. He need not relinquish it at the Jubilee. But houses in villages not enclosed in walls will be considered as situated in the open country. They carry the right of redemption, and the purchaser must relinquish them at the Jubilee. As regards the towns of the Levites, any property in the towns possessed by them shall carry a perpetual right of redemption in their favor. If it is a Levite who is affected by the right of redemption, at the Jubilee he must come out of the property that was sold and return to his home, to the town to which he has a title to property. For the houses in the towns of the Levites are their property in the midst of the sons of Israel, and the arable land depending on these towns cannot be sold, for it is their property forever. If your brother who is living with you falls on evil days and is unable to support himself with you, you must support him as you would a stranger or a guest, and he must continue to live with you. Do not make him work for you. Do not take interest from him. Fear your God, and let your brother live with you. You are not to lend him money at interest, or give him food to make a profit out of it. I am Yahweh your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt to give you the land of Canaan, and to be your God. If your brother falls on evil days when he is with you, and sells himself to you, you must not impose a slave's work on him. He shall be like a hired man or a guest, and shall work with you until the Jubilee year. Then he shall leave you, he and his children. He shall return to his clan, and regain possession of its ancestral property. For they are my servants, these whom I have brought out of Egypt, and they must not be sold like slaves. You must not be a hard master to him, but you must fear your God. The servants you have, men and women, shall come from the nations round you. From these you may purchase servants, men and women. You may also purchase them from the children of the strangers who live among you, and from their families living with you, who have been born on your soil. They shall be your property. And you may leave them as an inheritance to your sons after you, to hold in perpetual possession. These you may have for slaves. But your brothers, the sons of Israel, you must not be hard masters. If some stranger or settler among you grows rich, and your brother falls on evil days, and is in difficulties with him, and sells himself to him, to this stranger or settler among you, or to one of his descendants, he shall enjoy the right of redemption after sale, and one of your brothers may redeem him. His paternal uncle, his uncle's son, or a member of his own family may redeem him. If he has the means, he may redeem himself. By agreement with his purchaser, he must count the number of years between the year of sale and the Jubilee year. The sum of the price of sale must be calculated at the annual rate for these years, his time being valued as that of a hired man. If there are still many years to run, the proportion to the number he must refund part of his sale price as payment for his redemption. And if there are only a few years still to run before the Jubilee year, he must calculate in proportion to the number of these years what shall be refunded for his redemption, the calculation being made as if he were hired by the year. You must see that the man is not hardly dealt with. If he has not been redeemed in any of these ways, he shall go free in the Jubilee year, he and his children with him. For they are my servants, these sons of Israel. They are my servants, whom I have brought out of the land of Egypt. I am Yahweh your God. Leviticus chapter 26, 1 and 2. You must make no idols. You must set up neither carved image nor standing stone. Set up no sculptured stone in your land, to prostrate yourselves in front of it, for it is I, Yahweh, who am your God. You must keep my Sabbaths and reverence my sanctuary. I am Yahweh. The Jerusalem Bible, Jeremiah 32:6 through 27. Jeremiah said, "The word of Yahweh has been addressed to me as follows. Look, Hanamel, the son of your uncle Shallum, will come to you and say, Buy my field at Anathoth, for you have the right of redemption to purchase it. And, as Yahweh had said, my cousin Hanamel came to me in the court of the guard. He said to me, Buy my field at Anathoth, for you have the right of inheritance and redemption. Buy it. I knew then that this was Yahweh's order. Accordingly, I bought the field from my cousin Hanamel of Anathoth, and paid him the price, 17 silver shekels. I drew up the deed and sealed it, called in witnesses, and weighed out the money on the scales. I then took both the sealed deed of purchase and the open copy, in accordance with the requirements of the law, and handed them over to purchase to Baruch, son of Neriah, son of Messiah, in the presence of my cousin Hanamel, of the witnesses who had signed the deed of purchase, and of all the Jews who had happened to be in the court of the guard. In their presence I gave Baruch these instructions. Take these deeds, the sealed deed of purchase and its open copy, and put them in an earthenware pot, so that they may be preserved for a long time. For Yahweh Sabaoth, the God of Israel, says this, People will buy fields and vineyards in this land again. After I had entrusted the deed of purchase to Baruch the son of Neriah, I prayed thus to Yahweh. Ah, Lord Yahweh, you have made the heavens and the earth with your great power and outstretched arm. To you nothing is impossible. You show kindness to thousands, but repay the father's guilt in full to their children after them. Great and mighty God, whose name is Yahweh Sabaoth, great in purpose, mighty in execution, whose eyes are open on all the ways of men, rewarding each man as his ways and the results of his actions deserve. You performed signs and wonders in the land of Egypt, and do the same today in Israel and among mankind. You have won the name that is yours today. You brought your people Israel out of the land of Egypt with signs and wonders, with a mighty hand and outstretched arm and fearsome terror. Then you gave them this land, which you promised on oath to their ancestors, a land where milk and honey flow. And in due course they entered it and took possession. But they would not listen to your voice or follow your law. They would do nothing you ordered them to do. And so you made all these disasters happen to them. See how the earthworks grow nearer to the city for the assault. Sword, famine, and plague will deliver the city into the hands of the attacking Chaldeans. What you have said is now fulfilled, as you see. Yet you yourself, Lord Yahweh, told me, buy the field with money in front of witnesses. And even now the city is falling into the hands of the Chaldeans. The word of Yahweh was addressed to me as follows. See, I am Yahweh, the God of all mankind. Is anything impossible to me? The Jerusalem Bible, Luke 4:16 through 21. He came to Nazareth, where he had been brought up, and went in to the synagogue on the Sabbath day, as he usually did. He stood up to read. And they handed him the scroll of the prophet Isaiah. Unrolling the scroll, he found the place where it is written, The Spirit of the Lord has been given to me, for he has anointed me. He has sent me to bring the good news to the poor, to proclaim liberty to captives, and to the blind new sight, to set the downtrodden free, to proclaim the Lord's year of favor. He then rolled up the scroll, gave it back to the assistant, and sat down. And all eyes in the synagogue were fixed on him. And he began to speak to them. This text is being fulfilled today, even as you listen.